Welcome in. It is the final week of the regular season, and we are back with the WATD Fantasy Draft. Quinn Kelly, Johnny Rourke, Brendan Connolly. I cannot believe we're here, boys. Week 9, extra supersized regular season, and we're already at the end of it. It has flown by. It has been a super fast fall and a fun fall at that, with a lot of big performances. A lot of I feel like we were in the same position last year, but even more so where you really didn't know who the teams that were going to shine were this year. And now we're heading towards tournament time, feeling like there are maybe 4 divisions that you could really realistically see a South Shore champion come out of. So very exciting times. And we've got one more regular season fantasy draft to get on the books before things reset. So if you're unfamiliar, and better than I think this is the first time we've done a full clean, no repeats. Fingers crossed heading into our final week, but no repeats this year. The boards will reset after this coming week. We will only be picking from players that are in the playoffs, so no teams that are playing in consolation games or non-playoff games. Boards will reset. Everybody back available again next week. But we have one final week of the regular season to round out our boards with guys who haven't come off the board yet. So should be a fun week. Last week, for this deep into the season, one of our better scoring weeks all around. Pretty impressive stuff. Big performances all over. Johnny, you had a monster day. Ethan O'Connell was an animal for Archie's. Tommy Polidori had a receiving TD for West Bridgewater. Shane McDonald had like almost 140 yards receiving. For you, Brendan Miller Shea, 3 touchdown performance, monster game for Situate. Alan Norsika had a buck 30 and 2 touchdowns for Randolph. Huge game for you. I had Brendan Sacco with a couple of touchdowns. So big performances, and it just shows. I think that was a great example of how deep the South Shore is. That we got this late in the season with guys who after 8 weeks hadn't, or after 7 weeks hadn't come off the board yet, and they all went out and performed in week 8. So very exciting stuff. As we wind into it this week, we continue our rotation. I will be picking first, Johnny second, Brendan third. Any thoughts here as we head into the final week before we just jump right into the draft, boys?
Can't believe we were already here. Just a week to go before the playoffs start ramping up. And I'll give Randolph a quick shout out because they tagged me, I think, for the first time all season with Alan Norsika's main stat line at the top. Feel like they're watching. Quick shout out to Randolph as they're enjoying a great season.
And I think I did it again, and I believe you just did it. I'm gonna just correct ourselves because I know I've done it on our program before, and I apologize. I think it's Noriska. There's conflicting, like
Mariska.
it's spelled back and forth in different things, but his Twitter is Noriska. I think that's how it's pronounced, but it's I
Then it's
before
probably
S.
Mariska.
So apologies, Alan, if we've been mispronouncing that. I'm going to come to find out that it's not even pronounced Alan, but I hope it is. Apologies, buddy. We're going to nail it when we have you guys at Gillette. I promise you that. Johnny, any thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, share the sentiment there. I can't believe we're this far in, but I mean, this has been, frankly, I think one of the better seasons, top to bottom, that we've been around in the South Shore, which is saying something, just given the teams that we've seen roll through. But I mean, you said it, top to bottom. I mean, there are divisions upon divisions that I can see the South Shore making a run, and I feel pretty good about, which maybe that's dangerous, but I don't know. I feel pretty good about, where we're going to be come early December.
Hope is a dangerous thing, but it feels like a little bit better than hope right now. And I will say too, I think the collection of game, and I feel vindicated. We had somebody call the station prior to week 1, and I didn't get to field the call, fortunately for this person. But they told our PD that they were like, "Who's picking these games? This is an awful, awful schedule." And I feel vindicated because we got so many good games this year. Like I feel like almost every game. This was the first week where we had 2 games that really weren't particularly close. We have had awesome games each week. We've had I mean, there have been great games all over. You can't cover every great game going on. But I mean, starting from a quadruple overtime thriller between Abington and Duxbury, I feel like we have only kept our foot on the gas. So screw that guy.
No, I'll
Let's.
say that not to derail us here, but that guy's got the Sports Exchange direct line Sunday 5 to 7 if he
That's right.
wants.
I'd love to
That's
hear from whoever that was.
we didn't need to call the station in general. You know where to find us.
That's right. That's right. We're not shying away. I was happy with the schedule we put together. On that subject line, we are making an adjustment to the published schedule. We knew this was coming. I mentioned this on the show Sunday, but Mashpee and Cohasset flexed their Friday night game to Thursday. There were only three games involving South Shore teams going on Friday night, and two of them are at fields that don't have press boxes. So I would have loved to seen Archie's go for the undefeated season, but the facilities at West Roxbury are not going to allow for me to not freeze my ass off. Milton, shocking. Wanted to be there for Milton Natick. Cannot believe they don't have a press box, but alas, not disappointed. We get to see Hingham for the first time this season. We had a game scheduled for them that got flexed as well and unfortunately missed them. So now we get to make good. We're going to be down at Hingham on Friday night as they take on the Silver Lake Lakers. So very excited for that. That is our new Friday night game. That will come after Thursday night, which is going to be an absolute blast. Scituate versus Hanover, and that'll be on WATD, on 95.9 WATD. Big thank you to Veterans Voice and the rest of the Thursday night block for clearing out, but should be an awful lot of fun. So we got a great week of programming coming up. But before we get to any of that, it's time to get into the Week 9 WATD Fantasy Draft. So with that, I'm going to head right to the board, and I am going to go quarterback right off the rip here. I think that it is Brendan, you and I had a conversation about this on Sunday. They are going to backdoor their way into the playoffs, but they also are playing pretty good football right now. They had a really tough schedule to start the season and have turned it around. I think they're still going to have a tough time competing in D1, but Brockton is going to be in the playoffs. And you wouldn't have thought that heading into a week 6 matchup with, or a week 7 matchup with 5-0 Weymouth, but they're going to be in it, and I'm going with their quarterback, Marcio Semedo. Um, awesome story that I think is developing there, and just like the difference in what we've seen come across in the box scores from that team over recent weeks has been pretty incredible. So I'm going to go with Marcio Semedo. All right, Johnny, your first round pick.
Damn, I am unprepared for this. I will be honest with you. I usually come in locked in as of last week, but all right. Well, some of my guys are here, so I'm excited about that. I'm gonna go to East Bridgewater here. I'm gonna go Mark Lee, the receiver. I mean, really talented kid. That's a kind of a fun matchup for me, with them lacing it up against Abington here in the final week. That's one that Abington's got to be careful. I think East Bridgewater is ready for this one. They're coming off the bye, and Mark, yeah, I think they're gonna have to air it out, and he's gonna have to be a reason to do that because Abington can put up some serious points. So East Bridgewater's going to have to match that. But yeah, if I'm Abington, this is one I got to be wary of, and you certainly can't look past them to get to the playoffs and think, hey, we're number one, we want to lock this in. It's going to be a tough one.
If they can give Johnny King time to pass, I think Mark Lee could have a really big game. They're going to need to move the ball through the air, and East Bridgewater's been able to do that this season. They've had a rough go of it since they've gotten to the meat of their league schedule, but I think there are going to be points out there for Mark Lee. So I think it's a good pick, Johnny. Brendan, your first round pick.
I'm going to go running back here. Actually, I'm going to go to the same matchup Johnny just picked from. I'm going to go with Lee Spry out of Abington. I feel like this is a chance for him to really shine because, as we saw last week, looked like they had two of their running backs, their main ones, and Ryan Solomini and Naz Paulding both get a little dinged up. Would not be surprised to see their workload lightened up a little bit as they try to go into the playoffs strong. And Lee Spry always seems to find the end zone. He's their goal line guy. So I feel like this is a big chance for him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said, Brennan. Abington, we talked about this on the show as well. Like, Abington's a tough team to pick from because they spread it around so much. They had 10 different guys carry the ball for them last week. They had another 7 or 6 catch passes for them. Like, it's a lot of guys to get involved on offense. But Lee Spry, as far as what kind of makes them go, and especially, have to have a games for them, he's a big piece of the motor there. What he can do as the kind of the up man in that wing T formation is really special. He gets the tough yards, and more often than not, he's finding the end zone. So I think that's a great pick, Brennan. All right, I'm going to give a little shine to a guy that made his way back last week, coming off an ACL tear. Jason Snow had a great story about him in the Ledger. I'm going to go with Gavin Hammond, running back out of Duxbury. This is a kid that has been not an unsung piece, but like a big piece of the Duxbury team for a while because he's been a big, he's been a kicker for them and he's been great, one of the area's best. Um, had an ACL tear that went misdiagnosed for a little bit. Rehab started a little bit later than he would have liked, but he's got himself back. He had a two touchdown performance last week against Plymouth North. I think if they can add a little bit of dimensionality to that offense with Gavin Hammond in the mix again, I think that could be big for Duxbury. I think they're heading into a favorable matchup with Whitman Hanson this week, and I think that you could see him with a pretty heavy workload as they work him back in and get him ready to be a contributing piece coming towards playoff time. So big shout out to Gavin Hammond. An injury like that, it's a long road to recovery always, and getting yourself back in with time to spare in the season, that's no small task. So well done to him, and with that, I'll give him some shine. So. I will take Gavin. Gavin. All right, Johnny, round two.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go running back here. I'm gonna go Jalen Parks from Quincy. That's just a matchup I have circled. That's kind of one that Quincy's reeling a little bit. That's more just because of their schedule, right? They've played Plymouth South and Hanover these last two times and haven't become, come out on the right side of that. They get Pembroke. Pembroke has struggled since we saw them in Hanover. They appear to have scored all their points in that game and have kind of left the offense in Hanover. So I expect this to be a good one for Quincy, and I think Pembroke's going to come out firing as well. But ultimately, I think Quincy looks to run the ball a lot, and that's where Jalen comes in.
It's pretty stunning what has what has happened with the Pembroke offense. I know, again, that's not where the pick is, so I'll give Jalen some shine. In a backfield that features Jonas Alla and Leo Steinberg, he has found his way onto the score sheets. He's had a nice little season for himself, and I think they're going to get him involved. I think everybody's going to be involved in this, game against Pembroke, and it's an important one. It's an important statement game for Quincy, who is going to be in the D2 playoffs. Got to kind of get yourself rolling. And we talked about it. Just seeding is going to be so important in D2 just to you want to have a home game, obviously, and Quincy's in a position that they could wind up with one. But then also anything you can do to avoid CM as long as possible, and give yourself a chance to have a little bit longer of a playoff run. So Quincy's, I think, going to be looking to have a big game against Pembroke, and I think Jalen gets involved in that. All right, Brendan, close out round two.
I'm going to go wide receiver here. I'm going to turn to the Situate Hanover matchup. I think there's going to be a lot of points here. I'm going to go with Cam Sarusi, who is always one of Johnny Donovan's favorite targets. We saw Miller Shea go off last week. Cam Sarusi had a pretty big game himself, so would not be surprised to see that continue.
Thursday Night Lights on WATD, baby. Cam had a big game in the game against Norwell that we had. I'm really looking forward to watching him. We talked a little bit about it last week. It was kind of crazy that we went this deep into the season without a Situate wide receiver off the board. Miller immediately showed us why we should have had one on the board earlier, and I think Cam probably does that again this week as well. It's a tough matchup, I think, against Hanover. I think that defensive backfield has come a long way since that game we saw them against Pembroke, Johnny. But I think that Situate, even when they're, I mean, like you look at the numbers, they had almost 300 yards passing last week, and it was kind of a lackluster offensive performance. I mean, they had 27 points, but they were kind of struggling to distance themselves from North Quincy for a little bit. So, I think they're all going to kind of be involved in that. They're going to need to be. You're going to have to spread the ball around, show Hanover some different guys. So, wouldn't shock me at all to see Cam have a big game. All right, that takes us into round three, and I am going to. I'm going to close up my backfield. We had a Mashpee running back come off the board last week. I'm gonna go to another. Well, No, I'm going to do it. Give me Brendan Andrade from Mashpee. I think it's a supremely tough matchup. I recognize that against a very good defensive front in Cohasset. Um, but for that reason, I think the guy that plays when they get into that option kind of offense, the guy that plays the up tight to the line fullback is maybe a little bit more likely to get some running lanes, get some carries versus, the more traditional back. I think Andrade is probably going to have a little bit more success than Alade in this game for Mashpee. So, a tough matchup as it is. It's a big one. It's an important one for Mashpee. So I'll take Brennan Andrade. All right, Johnny.
Yeah, I'm going to go to that Milton Natick matchup that you mentioned on the top. Really excited about this one. I'm going to go with Patrick Mason from Milton. I think he's an extremely talented kid, and this offense absolutely hums. It's a battle of 6-1 teams here in this game. It's going to be a great one. They've got their work cut out for them against Natick. Natick's only losses to 2 points against the vaunted, King Philip team. But I mean, this Milton team puts up serious points. I think it was 21 points in their loss to Weymouth, and outside of that has been at least 34, 35 every game. So they are definitely an offense that flies around, and I expect them to have to use everybody against Natick.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And Patrick's been a great target this season. Obviously, Ronan Salmon kind of gets the focus, but Patrick's had a big season for them. And yeah, again, if any Milton booster is out there listening, you're Milton. I mean, like, I can't imagine resources are a struggle. Let's fire up a press box so we can come down and catch this battle of 6-1 teams. Uh, I think Patrick's going to have a great game. I wish we could see it, but I think it's going to be a big one for him. All right, Brendan.
I'm going to go quarterback here, and I'm going to go look at the Quincy Pembroke matchup. I'm going to go with Braden O'Connell. I feel like this is a matchup where Quincy's going to try and get back on track offensively. Pembroke, as we mentioned earlier, has been struggling, and even if Quincy jumps in front, I still feel like it's going to be close for maybe most of the first half, and he's going to get involved.
Yeah, I think he's been really good this season. Nate Goff had a great career there. It wasn't quite the same situation as in North Quincy, where the next guy up after Mikey Galligan really has big shoes to fill. But Nate Goff had a really good career there, and so Braden I think flew in under the radar a little bit this year. A lot was needed from him, and he's been really really good. And you get the added benefit that he kicks for them as well. He's made a bunch of field goals this year. I think that. For all the reasons that we talked about earlier with this matchup against Pembroke, it's an important one for Quincy. I think this is a really good week for Braden. So I like it, Brendan. All right, I will jump us into round four here. I need my wide receivers. So I'm gonna go to I'm gonna go to the Whitman Hanson game. Again, we've kind of talked about it. It's been a struggle for them. This is last gasp for Whitman Hanson. I expect them to pour everything out into this game. I'm going to go with a guy who has found his way onto the score sheet despite, scores being a little bit hard to come by for the Panthers. I'm going to go with Thiago Magalhães. I think that again, you've seen certain guys continue to pop up in the box scores for them. He's been one of them. I know it hasn't been the season they've wanted, but I'm going to bet on a team that plays with a lot of pride and has one last chance to kind of make a statement before they head into the non-playoff section of the postseason. So I like getting Tiago on the board. All right, Johnny.
I am going to go. This team admittedly has kind of a tough matchup, but I'm going to go South Shore Votech. I'm going to go Ryan Holmes at quarterback. They're a team that, they sit at 4-3. They've looked good at points. They have obviously suffered a couple of losses. It's a tough matchup for them. However, they're going to need Ryan to step up in this game. If this is one that they're going to win, they're going to need him to play really well. So I'm going to go with Ryan.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, they've battled this year. I think they've played some good football. You're right. It has been a little bit up and down for them. This is an important game for them coming down the stretch here. And Ryan's been excellent. So I think, if nothing else, deserving of some shine. I think it's a great pick, Johnny. All right, Brendan, close out round four. You're on mute. Sorry, buddy.
Sorry, boys. I'm going to go to the Marshfield Plymouth North matchup here. I'm going to go to Aiden Summers for my next wide receiver. I feel like this is, or is he already off the board?
No, you guys are just killing me. I'm running out of receivers, and I don't like to pick somebody in the game we're covering, but I'm not really gonna have an option. So
Yeah, well, I feel like this is a good matchup for both offenses. It could be
yeah,
like we saw Hingham and Marshfield last week turn into a defensive showing. So what do I know there? But I feel like both teams are going to try and rebound, come back in this game. Marshfield coming off a very close defensive win, whereas Plymouth North is coming off a tough loss to Duxbury. And I feel like we're going to see the offenses shine here. And Summers will be getting his numbers.
yeah, uh, yeah, absolutely. I think that they're rounding into form. I don't think that the Hingham game would necessarily suggest that for Marshfield, but I do think that that was a great defensive battle, and they're still a capable offense. And you've seen, I feel like with each passing week, a little bit more depth in the offensive kind of score sheet for Marshfield. I think Aiden Summers has made some big plays for them over the course of the season. And I think, as you said, Brendan, for Marshfield in that D3 field that we talked about as well on Sunday looks really, really good. I mean, a lot of quality teams there amidst some really good seasons. Marshfield, as of the last ranking, sitting at number 6. I'm sure it's been updated by the time this we go live with this, but they are in they need to move up. They need to get a little bit higher. I think quarters you don't want to be going on the road. Um, so I think important for them to go out and get a big win over Plymouth North. So I could see them really moving the ball a lot through the air. All right, that brings us into round 5. I need one more receiver. Again, I apologize. I try not to do this, but it is what it is. I'm going to do it. He's the last guy I have on my board. I'm going to go with Tyler Stelgis, sophomore out of Situate. Um, we'll see. I'm excited for this matchup because you know there's talent on the back end of the Hanover defense, right? Brandon Erico's fantastic in coverage. The linebackers are really excellent in coverage. Maybe Miller Shea and Cam Cerusi have a tough day getting free, and that's where a third option and a very capable third option at that, and Tyler Stelgis finds a way to um, finds a way to have a big day. He's made some touchdown catches over the course of the year. I think he's a future stud for them, and he's a key piece right now. And so I think, in a game where Hanover's defense is going to be looking to take some of your top targets away, I think this is a game that Tyler Stelgis could find a way to have a big one. So I'll go with the sophomore out of Situate. All right, Johnny.
I'm actually gonna go a little bit off the board here. I think this is a guy who I don't even believe he was on the list at the beginning of the season, but he has really shown out the last couple weeks and the last, 4 or 5. We talked about Abington, how many guys touch the ball, how many different guys touch the ball. I'm gonna go Daniel Pfeiffer for running back for them. Underclassman, really talented. He plays with his brother. That team has a lot of charisma right now, a lot of spunk, and it just feels like they can kind of go toe to toe with anyone right now, and they are going to get everyone involved, much like we saw them come out of the locker room to start that game, and I think it was 5 different running backs touched the ball right away, and that's just kind of how they're going to continue to run, and that's why I think both Lee is going to get touches as well as Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've loved, I mean, we've seen him a couple times now, Johnny. He kind of surprised us in that Norwell game having a big day. I love what we've seen from him. He's really, really talented for them. And to Brendan's earlier point, I have to imagine you're not really going to see Naz Paulding in this game. I think just there's no reason to push it with him. So I think that's one more rung up that Pfeiffer goes, and I mean he's been a beast so far. So I think that's a great pick. Brennan, close out round 5.
I think I need one more running back, and I'm going to look to the Brockton Durfee matchup. I'm going to go, I believe it's CJ Taylor. Am I pronouncing that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Yep, CJ Taylor. I'm going to give Durfee a little bit more credit. I think this game's going to be closer than people think, but I'm leaning Brockton for the win. And I feel with them playing in front, they're going to need to milk the clock, and he's going to get some touches in this one.
Yeah, no question about it. And he's been coming along really, really nicely as the season has gone on. Him and Lord Honest Blue as well. But he's been the feature back for them, and he's been really, really good. And I think they're going to be able to move the ball on Durfee. Simple as that. I think he could have a big game for them. All right, that brings us into round six, and I gotta get to the board here with a defense. And boy, let's see. I am gonna go. I am. I'm struggling. I am going to go with the Hingham defense. I'm gonna go. Nope, no, I'm not. Never mind. That's not right. I'm not gonna do that because we're gonna be there. So I'm gonna go with the. Let's see if there anyone we haven't gotten to yet. No, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with the Randolph defense. I think they're gonna manhandle Roxbury Prep. I think they finish off the undefeated season. So give me the Randolph defense. All right, Johnny.
Defenses are always tough. I kind of lose track of who we go with, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think this is the one thing that we've definitely repeated. It is what it
Yeah.
is.
I don't know if we've done them already, but I think they've looked pretty good. This is a favorable matchup for them. I'm going to go with the Severian defense. They got Malden Catholic. Severian has really settled in after those two hiccups against Springfield Central and Central Catholic, but they have, kind of settled in, and I believe if they win Friday, I think the
Sure.
worst they can do is tie for the league title, given the matchup that they got with St. John's Prep. I guess
Right, CMB Prep, right?
I think so. Or
Yeah,
no, that's this weekend.
that's this weekend.
Yeah.
So
So it'll
if
depend
CM
on
beats
yeah.
Prep,
Yeah.
yeah.
So but that's a big one for them. They got to go take care of business with Malden Catholic, focus on the playoffs. They obviously got a lot in front of them with the Thanksgiving game as well, but can't overlook them. And I think that's kind of a get right game for the defense as well.
I don't think that I'll just say like the defense, I think we go a little bit more lax on the rules, but I wouldn't even say I mean, we could repeat defenses. It would be very hard not to. You picked the Severian defense and a flag planting pick. You had them against CM 2 weeks ago,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, which is fine because it was a
No, I
great
did
pick.
forget about that. Yeah, no, I
It was
kind
on
of
our socials,
no,
bookended
that's
the
true.
CM winning
That's
streak
true.
with the correct pick against the Knights twice, and then you followed it up with a Plymouth South pick where they gave up 7 points. So
Well, there you
uh,
go.
Johnny with the defensive picks has been money. All right, Brendan, close out the draft.
I'm pretty sure we have picked this team at some point this season, but that's the law of defense, right? You're going to have repeats. I'm going to go with Duxbury against Whitman Hanson. Feel like this is where the Dragons try to close out strong, get their power ranking seating a little bit higher, and seal the deal.
I think it's I think it's a great pick. I think absolutely. I can't. I mean, I feel like I tipped a pick. I'm surprised neither of you followed up with the Hingham pick. So good on you, I guess. But yeah, no, Duxbury I think is just as likely to have a big game. I think favorable matchup for them, and they need to. That's another team that I think it's just like you gotta get. I think so. I believe the last rankings they were sitting at 4 and Ducks and Situate's at
Three,
1. You just
three.
you oh they are 3.
They're number three. It's
Okay.
Situate, Tewksbury, and then Duxbury. So
So
three of the same usual contenders we see at the
yeah,
top of D4 every year.
gotta maintain that number 3 spot. Don't want to see Situate again anytime sooner than you have to. I mean, I think Tewksbury is going to be a really tough matchup for them too if it comes down to that. But stay away from Situate as long as you possibly can. Very important for them to stay at either 2 or 3. All right, that rounds it out. That will do it. Let me run them through. Out of the top spot, I had Marcio Semedo, Brockton quarterback. My running backs, Gavin Hammond out of Duxbury and Brendan Andrade out of Mashpee. My wide receivers, Tiago Magahales out of Whitman Hanson and Tyler Stelgis out of Situate with the Randolph defense. Johnny had Brian Holmes out of South Shore of Oak at quarterback, running backs, Jalen Parks out of Quincy, Daniel Pfeiffer out of Abington, wide receivers, Mark Lee out of EB, and Patrick Mason out of Milton with the Severian defense, and Brendan at quarterback, Braden O'Connell out of Quincy, your running backs, Lee Spry out of Abington, and CJ Taylor out of Brockton, your wide receivers, Cam Cerruti out of Situate, and Aiden Summers out of Marshfield with the Duxbury defense. that does it. Regular season in the books as far as the WATD fantasy draft goes. As far as WATD goes, Thursday night, Scituate and Hanover. Hanover's either getting the Patriot League Fisher Division crown outright or Scituate's claiming a share. We'll have that game for you. 95.9 WATD, 7 o'clock kickoff, 6:45 pregame show. Very excited for that one. And then we'll get our first look on Friday in our South Shore game of the week at Hingham as they take on Silver Lake. One last chance for the Harlequins to make a statement before the playoffs begin. So that will do it. For Johnny and Brendan, I'm Quinn, and we will see you next time on the WATD Fantasy Draft. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe.